Hello everybody, I'm Eternal Flame here, and today we are going over the full potential of one Gojo Satoru. Now originally I was going to do all Jujutsu High Faculty staff in one video, but I kind of realized the fact that Gojo already has so much I can go over that it would be an entire video's length, so I'm just going to do it all in one video for Gojo. This also serves the full potential of 6 Eyes plus Limitless as well, mainly because there's only a few mindset changes that I can make to Gojo that would really make him allowed to actually unlock the full potential of the 6 Eyes plus Limitless, since he's already so good with the technique itself. However, in spite of that, there are definitely ways to improve the 6 Eyes plus Limitless, which is what we're going to get into on how to improve Gojo Satoru and make him really the strongest sorcerer of all time. Now before we can go into how to improve Gojo, I am going to go into a summary of Gojo's abilities up first. Now first we're going to go over what the 6 Eyes do for Gojo, because those are the much simpler things to go over, and they aren't really something that we can improve, but more so something that's going to help with basically everything else. Number 1, the 6 Eyes allow Gojo to even be able to use the Limitless to begin with. They also allow for the near perfect detection of curse energy and sensory of curse energy. This vision goes so good that Gojo basically, even with a blindfold on that completely blinds out his eyes, is still able to see everything perfectly. The 6 Eyes also allow Gojo to see curse energy on a subatomic level, and it allows him to make it so every single time he uses a curse technique, it uses the minimal amount of curse energy needed in order for it to be at that power. Effectively, it doesn't matter how much stamina Gojo uses, he is never going to run out of stamina when it comes to curse techniques. However, reverse curse techniques and domain expansions are the exception to that rule. However, reverse curse techniques and domain expansions aren't even fully the exception to the rule, just they do have a more noticeable drain. However, they still do have a drain nonetheless, but Gojo is still able to massively minimize the drain that they have. Finally, through his 6 Eyes, he's capable of basically setting up automatic processes for his curse technique. And now we're going to go into the Limitless, and as we go over different applications of the Limitless, I'm going to go over how I would improve them in order to make them better, starting out with Blue. Now, Blue is the most basic and primary application of the Limitless that Gojo uses. For example, he uses it to basically make a vacuum effect, he uses it to make his Limitless barrier, which effectively slows down anything that is coming towards him, he uses it in order to pull people towards his fists with his blue amped punches, and when he was fighting against Toji, he basically used it like a black hole in order to suck Toji towards the blue sphere, basically making something similar to a black hole in terms of its properties. And now comes my first idea for how I would use the Limitless in order to make it better, where one of the methods that I would use the Limitless is by making a blue sphere high up into the sky and pulling people towards it. An advantage that exists in JJK that doesn't really exist in most other series is most characters aren't really capable of flying. Like, the amount of characters that are capable of flying you can count on 2 hands, so you can literally just pull someone up into the sky and then drop them on the ground to do some type of damage. There's also another way you can use it, which is an even more advanced version of it, where you basically use the Limitless to pull someone up and then pull them back down to the ground, basically on some full-on Sans type energy from Undertale in one of his own attacks, to just repeatedly slam someone down on the ground and then pull them back up and slam them on the ground again over and over. Furthermore, and this is an application I'm really surprised Gojo has never really tried out, which is surrounding somebody else with the Limitless barrier rather than just himself. After all, what the Limitless barrier does is slow down the movements of everybody inside of the Limitless barrier. So what is really stopping Gojo from just surrounding somebody else from the Limitless barrier as well? Especially keep in mind, the Limitless barrier is literally just blue. So we already know blue can just appear on random things, so why not just surround somebody else in the Limitless barrier, effectively trapping them and making them unable to move? There's also something else you can do with the blues, which is effectively making a bunch of blues connected to the ground itself, effectively pulling people down towards the ground and hindering a lot of people's mobility, while Gojo himself would be completely unaffected. Like, imagine you're being pulled down to the ground by a blue, but at the same time Gojo's rushing towards you and just landing blue fist after blue fist on you. Also, something else you can do with blue is literally carrying around a blade. And you might be wondering, why would a blade be useful for Gojo? Well, the way the blue fists work is that they effectively pull people towards the fist. So instead of doing that with a fist, why not do that with, I don't know, a blade, making it significantly harder to dodge it because they're being pulled towards the slash coming at them and basically cutting them off before they can even run away or move. This can also go crazy if Gojo pairs this up with his teleportation that I think he should use more often in combat, and I'm not going to go on an entire rant on why Gojo should use his teleportation more often in combat, but I think a lot of people know if he were to use that, especially with a lot of his other abilities, then man, he would be broken. Something else that I would have Gojo do as well is not just have Gojo have the blue fists, but also basically carry around like 8 blue orbs that are floating behind him, so that everything that he wants get pulled towards him gets pulled towards him by those orbs. Mainly because, as we can see, the blue orbs don't really affect Gojo himself, but they do affect other people and other things. So imagine Gojo pulling someone towards him, but rather than just having 1 of the blue orbs flowing towards you, you're now having to deal with 8 of the blue orbs, adding to the force that Gojo's already going to punch you with. Gojo could also choose to launch out these blue orbs as well for additional attacks, similar to what he did against Sukuna as well, but this doesn't also stop him from making those blue orbs just appear around someone, like what he did against Sukuna in their battle, where he made 8 blue orbs just appear around Sukuna. And to make Gojo's blue fist even more deadly, add in metal shards on top of the blue fist, where the blue is basically carrying around a bunch of metal shards that are floating around Gojo's fist, so when Gojo pulls in someone to get punched, not just are they getting punched by Gojo, but they're also getting punched by these shards of metal that are going to stab it into an opponent. Now, of course, most people normally wouldn't be able to survive something like this, but this is more just for extra measure, just to do an extra amount of damage. Even though it would probably be minor, it would still be pretty helpful, especially considering the fact that you can infuse these with curse energy as well. Oh, and the final method that would be pretty useful for Gojo's blue usage is something he can do with his teleportation, where Gojo has already shown off the ability to grab somebody and be able to teleport them with him. This is what he did with Yuji. So remember my entire thing that I talked about earlier of Gojo using blue to pull somebody high up into the air? He doesn't really need to do that, because instead, Gojo can just teleport over to somebody, grab them, and then teleport them either to the bottom of the ocean or to the atmosphere. And before somebody says, oh, the bottom of the ocean is too crazy, reminder, Gojo teleported out of the bottom of the Mariana Trench over to Kenjaku. So him doing this either to the atmosphere or to the bottom of the ocean would be very deadly, especially the bottom of the ocean, considering most sorcerers, by what I know, can't really breathe underwater because I don't think curse energy gives you water breathing. Unless that was added in some recent curse energy patch in order to allow them to have water breathing, I don't think they have that ability. Anyway, I was about to move on to Red, but then I got a final idea to add something else to Gojo's arsenal because I really want to make this a thing. You know that we've already seen Gojo be able to lift up buildings with blue because he literally threw a giant building at Sukuna in the middle of their battle, right? So what's stopping Gojo from, oh I don't know, making a giant blue sphere that sucks up a bunch of things towards it, making a giant rock sphere that's basically going to pull the person in and force them to get hit by a bunch of buildings while they're being pulled in. So yes, for my Naruto fans, we're giving Gojo Chibaku Tensei. After all, this should be possible. We're just literally magnetizing one of the abilities Gojo showed off in the battle against Sukuna to make it that much better. So now we're going to move on to the next idea, which we're going to talk about with Red. Red currently is just a powerful sphere of energy that is noted to be stronger than blue, mainly because it uses reverse curse technique, so it takes up double the energy, but it is much more powerful than blue. Now granted, Red isn't always more powerful than blue because Gojo can hold back Red. For example, when he used it against Jogo, he massively held it back to be weaker than blue because of one of Jogo's later statements in Shibuya. However, he can hold it back as much as he wants, but Red just innately has more power than blue unless Gojo chooses to hold it back. So how would we improve Red? Well, number one, and this is probably the most obvious improvement to Red that we can make, Gojo usually fires it off on one finger, right? Why not, oh I don't know, give Gojo the ability to fire it off on both fingers, you know, 2-finger guns for Red rather than just 1-finger gun for Red. And while we're at it, let's give Gojo the ability to rapid fire these Reds. Now of course these Reds wouldn't be as powerful as a fully charged one, however the ability to rapid fire them I believe should be possible considering how the 6 sides work, unless his brain is being specifically tired out thanks to all the domain clashes he would have to do like against Sukuna, which he's not really going to be against Sukuna 9 out of 10 times. However, I also think Gojo just with more time could eventually figure out how to do this with enough practice. There's also another idea I came up with, which is specifically combining Red with one of Gojo's other abilities, being his ability he showed off against Sukuna that allowed him to make after images. Now most people wouldn't really be able to teleport those after images, however Sukuna is kind of the exception to that rule. However, why not have it so in each of the after images there is a Red laying in trap, so in case they go for one of the after images they end up getting hit in the face with a Red. Or basically imagine it so like every time that Gojo teleports there's just a small Red left behind in order for whoever tries to go for one of the shadow clones or after images to just get hit by one of the Reds. And this could also work as a good fake out as well, because even if they do figure out if it's the real Gojo out to attack them or not, Gojo can swap in for another after image and they get hit by a Red in the face. After all, we know Gojo can control the direction they go in, considering he was capable of making a red basically circle around the building and ricochet to land on Sukuna's back, so I don't see any reason he should be capable of just, oh I don't know, stopping the red from moving. I think that seems pretty easy in comparison to making it ricochet and do tricks. On top of that, there's also something else Gojo should be capable of doing, and I don't know why he isn't doing this, which is instead of using blue for his fists, use red to surround his fists as well, or even do a mixture of both. Where at first you use the blue in order to pull somebody in and land the initial punch, but then you swap over to using red on the fist after, deactivating the blue fist, in order to launch them back and cause a massive amount of knockback. Gojo could even do some type of teleportation-like combo after launching somebody back and teleporting behind them to punch them again, basically making them a pinball machine. Now normally this would be a draining tactic to do, but fortunately for Gojo, he has the advantage called the 6 size, which makes it so all curse energy usage is near 0. So he is definitely going to be fine after doing a combo like this, assuming whatever he has to face somehow manages to survive the combo. Up next is another way to improve Gojo's abilities. Remember how I was talking about the fact that Gojo can remote control his reds? Oh, I don't know, fire out a bunch of reds at the beginning of a fight and have them just start to fly around aimlessly, almost like you miss, and eventually just have them be redirected to land on an opponent's back. The entire tactic he did against Sukuna, but instead of just being one red he fired off, fire off several of them. This would set up a bunch of battle tactics that would be really useful, basically making you able to jump people with just yourself. It also will be really useful for something else that we're going to talk about later when we get to the purple section, but we're going to stay on the red section for just a little bit longer because there are still more things I want to add. You could also add a binding vow to the reds themselves as well in order to make it so that they can only actually be used on an opponent once the opponent is some distance close to them, basically making it have a binding vow of a range limit in order to amplify the already immense power that exists with red. Something else Gojo could do is just create a red and then teleport in front of the opponent and smack them straight in the face with the red, making it do maximum damage, mainly because from what we can tell, the closer you are to the cursing being fired off, the better the damage is going to be, thanks to something we found out about through Hollow Purple, and the reason why Sukuna was able to survive the initial Hollow Purple that was fired off at him. Something else that Gojo could potentially do is create a Shikigami, mainly because we know everybody is capable of creating a Shikigami, so why not just give one to Gojo that just kind of exists in the background, made to be support, and constantly either firing out blue or reds depending on what is fused into it. After all, if anyone would be able to figure out how to make their own Shikigami with a curse technique like this, it would be Gojo with the 6 size, considering how much of a prodigy he's noted to be, and this would also allow Gojo to actually have someone that could join him on the battlefield, since the Shikigami would be made from his curse energy and not from someone else's, and as we know, being made from your own curse energy gives you a resistance to your own attacks, which would allow Gojo to come over one of his biggest hurdles of having to fight alone. He'd still technically be fighting alone, but he wouldn't be fighting fully alone because now he has a Shikigami with his technique. Unfortunately though, this is kind of where we're going to have to end with the red side of things for now, mainly because as much as I love red and a lot of people do love red, it doesn't really have that many known properties or known usages of it because it's mainly just used as big finisher attack, and because of that there's only so much I can really do in comparison to blue, which has been shown off to have a lot of versatilities, and purple, which has been shown off to have a lot of interesting hacks properties. Red is kind of just pure force, but even then I think we did add enough to red to make it that much more viable in combat and that much more useful, as now we are finally going to move on to Hollow Purple. Hollow Purple, the strongest ability of Gojo, the one that killed Toji and made him into the Apple logo. How are we going to make Hollow Purple better as an ability? Well, up first, I'm going to expand on the idea I was talking about earlier, where Gojo fires out several reds at the beginning of the battle and just has them flying around. The main reason why I think this is something that could be useful for purple is because of something else that Gojo had displayed during his battle against Sukuna, which is the ability to make the blue orbs just spawn around somebody, and I think you guys might be able to tell where I'm going. Have the blue orbs spawn on the reds after they are fired out, basically making several of the unlimited hollow type moves that Gojo used in his final battle against Sukuna as the final move that he used. And while all these are being fired out, you have Gojo teleport out the way, and now you just have 8 unlimited hollow nukes just fired all across the area. Now of course this wouldn't be able to be used with multiple people around you, but we already know Gojo fights at his best when he fights alone, so this would basically be used for area clearing or just to make sure whatever got hit by the unlimited hollow is dead. There's also the entire fan-made combination that a lot of people have thought of for Gojo, where he fires out a Hollow Purple, removes somebody's hands, and then teleports behind them and unlimited voids them. You know, the win con a lot of people made for Gojo against Sukuna. Oh, right, also to get Unlimited Void out the way, I'm not going to be altering Unlimited Void that much, mainly because there isn't much you can do other than, like, maybe making the barrier an open barrier, but we don't know how that works or how an open barrier domain can even be made, so I'm just getting that out the way, and now we're going to return back to Hollow Purple. Something else that might be possible to do with Hollow Purple is instead, you know how Gojo uses the entire blue fist? Why not try and make it a purple fist instead, so whenever he punches somebody, it ends up landing a Hollow Purple or something with a Hollow Purple-like effect on them. This is especially possible in my opinion, mainly because of the fact that we know Gojo takes minimal amounts of damage from Hollow Purple because of the fact it being his own curse energy. So why not just try this instead of the blue fist? Because I guarantee you, while not having the same pull effect that blue does, it would still have significantly more damaging potential because now you're being hit with a Hollow Purple head on. Also, if this is possible as well, why not try and make Hollow Purple smaller too? Like, remember the size of the red that Gojo had first landed on Toji? Why not try and make Hollow Purples that size as well? Because this would make it so you would have significantly more options when fighting with other people as well. Rather than having to fight on your own, you would still be able to use Hollow Purple, you just would be able to use the less destructive version of it, which would be this smaller, more precise version of a Hollow Purple that could go for things like vital organs on an opponent. Now, as a note, I am fully willing to acknowledge that this might not be possible, but why not try it at the very least? You never know until you try it, so if this is something that is possible, you could add it to your arsenal. Also, if it's possible, learn how to direct Hollow Purple as well. Now, I'm not saying it's fully possible, but like I said before, it's worth trying to learn how to do so. After all, red and blue can both be directed, so I don't see any reason why, with time and training, Hollow Purple can't be directed either. It might just be a skill issue thing, it might be how the ability works, who knows, worth trying. Finally, you could also do a really good combination where you have a blue behind a purple, where the blue is pulling people towards the purple, so they end up getting hit head-on by the purple and doesn't have to travel as much of a distance, because as we learned in the Sukuna battle, the more and more of a distance the purple has to travel, the weaker and weaker it becomes, so it makes it so an opponent can't just run away from the purple, or can't just stay at a far distance, because they're also getting pulled to the purple while the purple is going towards them. And that is about everything that I currently have in mind in order to amplify Gojo's abilities currently. Now, while I do think I definitely made Gojo stronger than he is in canon, I actually don't think I made him that much stronger than he is in canon, mainly because I don't think there are that many ways to improve his abilities other than improve how he used those abilities. But that's just my thoughts, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below on how you guys would improve Gojo's abilities as well to make him reach his full potential. Did I figure out his full abilities, or are there other things that could be possible? I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below.